Restored mosaic 6 months and 14 days later, Mira stood nervously in Mumbai's contemporary art gallery, surrounded by the culmination of Vikram's healing journey, an exhibition titled Fractured Hearts Restoration. The gallery buzzed with critics, architects and art enthusiasts admiring the innovative fusion of architectural rendering and emotional expressionism. Each piece told a story of breakdown and rebuilding, trauma and recovery. "Your influence is evident throughout his work," commented Dr. Mathur, appearing beside her. "Ethically handled in the end, I must admit." Mira nodded, though her focus remained on scanning the crowd for Vikram. They'd maintained minimal contact during the waiting period, occasional texts about his progress, a coffee meeting witnessed by colleagues to discuss his community center project. Professional, appropriate, agonizing. "He's in the private viewing room," Mathur said knowingly. "The final piece isn't for public display." Heart pounding, Mira made her way to the small room at the gallery's rear. Inside, Vikram stood before a covered canvas, more nervous than she'd ever seen him. "You came," he said, "drinking in the sight of her. I wouldn't miss your triumph." She smiled, maintaining a careful distance despite the magnetic pull between them. "Dr. Mathur says you've been officially discharged with excellent progress notes." "Full recovery isn't the right term," Vikram said thoughtfully. "I'll always carry what happened. But I've built something new around the broken places." He gestured to the covered canvas. "This one's different from the others. It's for you." He pulled away the cloth to reveal not a painting, but a three-dimensional installation, their original collaborative piece. Damaged by the flood, carefully preserved in fragments and reassembled within a custom light box. The cracks between pieces were filled with gold resin, illuminated from within. "Kintsugi," Mira whispered, recognizing the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. "Honoring the breaks instead of hiding them." "It's called Therapist and Patient," Vikram said, watching her reaction. "Though I've been thinking of renaming it Beginning." Mira traced the golden seams with her fingertip. "It's beautiful, Vikram. There's something else." He opened a small drawer built into the installation's base, revealing a key. "The community center is finished. They've offered me the director position. There's also an art therapy wing that needs leadership." She looked up, surprised. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a partnership. Professional and—" He hesitated. "Whatever else might develop, now that we're both free to explore it." Mira took the key, feeling its weight, symbolic of so much more than just a building. "You know it won't be simple. People will talk. Let them. We've done everything by the book. Besides," he smiled, taking her free hand, "when have broken things ever mended in a straight line?" For the first time, without professional barriers between them, Mira allowed herself to step closer. His arms encircled her waist as naturally as if they'd embraced 1,000 times before. "I kept thinking about something you said in our first session," Vikram murmured. "We all have our fractured places. I've spent 6 months learning that those fractures don't make us weaker. They make us who we are," Mira finished. Finally allowing herself to press her lips to his, the kiss felt like completing a circuit, energy flowing between points long disconnected. When they separated, both were smiling through tears. Around them, the golden-veined mosaic glowed, illuminating their faces, two people who had found beauty in brokenness and strength in vulnerability. Their fractured hearts, once shattered by separate traumas, now formed something new. A restored mosaic, stronger at the broken places, beautiful because of them. "So," Vikram whispered against her hair, "shall we begin?" Mira's answer was to kiss him again, certain that whatever they created together, professionally, personally, artistically, would honor both their broken and healing parts equally. Broken pieces. The emergency call came at midnight. A pipe had burst at Prism Center, flooding the therapy rooms. Mira rushed there in sweatpants and a hastily thrown-on jacket. Hair still damp from her shower, she found Vikram already there, directing a cleanup crew with the same precision he once applied to architectural projects. "What are you doing here?" she asked, stunned. "Director Kumar called me. I still know a few contractors who owe me favors." He didn't meet her eyes. "Your art room took the worst hit. The door to her therapy space revealed catastrophe, canvases soaked, supplies ruined. Their collaborative painting hung precariously, water damage creeping up its edges. Mira moved to save it, but the sodden canvas began tearing in her hands. "No, no, no," she whispered, trying to hold the dissolving pieces together. Vikram appeared beside her, gently taking the painting. "Some things can't be saved as they were," he said, carefully placing the damaged canvas on a dry surface. "But they can be transformed." They worked through the night, salvaging what could be saved. By dawn, exhaustion had stripped away their usual defenses. They sat on the building's front steps, watching the sunrise, shoulders almost touching. "Why did you become an art therapist?" Vikram asked suddenly. Mira stared at her hands, paint-stained and trembling slightly. "Same reason anyone enters healing professions. Fix others because you can't fix yourself." "What needs fixing?" The question hung between them. Mira hadn't shared her past with a patient before, but Vikram didn't feel like just a patient anymore. Panic disorder. Stems from childhood trauma, father's alcoholism, emotional abuse. She spoke clinically, as if discussing someone else's case. "Art was my escape. Later it became my ladder out." "Yet you still have panic attacks," he observed quietly. "How did you—" "Your breathing exercises during our sessions, the way you sometimes grip your wrist. I recognized the signs." The understanding in his eyes broke something inside her. Mira felt her chest tightening, breath coming faster. Not now, she thought desperately. Not in front of him, but the attack came anyway, brutal and swift. The world narrowed to a tunnel of fear as she gasped for air. Then Vikram's hands were covering hers, his voice steady. "Draw with me, Mira, right here." He traced patterns on her palm. "Follow my finger. Create something beautiful in your mind." Gradually, her breathing steadied as she focused on the invisible design he created against her skin. When the panic receded, she realized how close they sat, his arm around her shoulders. "I shouldn't have let you see that," she whispered. "Why? Because therapists are supposed to be perfectly healed?" His voice held no judgment. "We're all just broken pieces trying to form something whole." The morning light caught his face, illuminating features she'd memorized over weeks of sessions. Without thinking, Mira reached up, her fingers tracing the worry line between his brows. Vikram caught her hand, but didn't push it away. Instead, he turned it over, studying her paint-stained fingers. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pressed his lips to her palm. "This isn't in your treatment plan," he murmured against her skin. "No," she agreed, not pulling away. "It's definitely not." The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and professional ruin. Then Vikram gently released her hand and stood. "We should get some rest. Separately," he added with a sad smile, "before we create something we can't undo." As he walked away, Mira remained on the steps, watching the sunrise through tears. The broken pieces of their separate traumas had somehow formed a dangerous, beautiful connection, one that could heal them both or shatter them completely. Part 4. Mending Cracks. The Ethics Committee has concerns. Ms. Sharma. Director Kumar's voice was carefully neutral as he slid the folder across his desk. "A patient has reported observing inappropriate closeness between you and Mr. Kapoor during the flood incident." Mira's stomach dropped. "We were both volunteering during an emergency. Nothing inappropriate occurred. Nevertheless, I'm transferring Mr. Kapoor to Dr. Mathur effective immediately." "That would disrupt his progress," Mira argued. Professional concern warring with personal disappointment. "Vikram has finally begun processing his trauma through our art sessions." "Which is why we're not terminating therapy entirely," Kumar replied. "But your emotional involvement is evident even in how you say his name." She couldn't argue. For 2 weeks since the flood, she'd maintained strict boundaries during their sessions. But the undercurrent remained, unspoken, unprofessional, undeniable. Outside Kumar's office, Mira found Vikram waiting, expression taut. "They're reassigning me," he said before she could speak. "Did you request it?" "No. They're concerned about boundaries." I understand. His voice was clipped. I've accepted the transfer, just like that. The hurt in her voice surprised them both. Vikram glanced around the corridor before speaking softly. What choice do we have? You could lose your license. I could lose the only therapy that's actually helped. He was right, of course. Still, as she watched him walk away, Mira felt something breaking all over again. 3 days later, she received a package. Inside was a small framed sketch, their damaged collaborative painting, redrawn from memory with subtle changes. Where there had been broken buildings, now stood structures in various stages of repair. A note read simply, "Some breaks allow for better rebuilding." That evening, Mira visited the address on the return label. Vikram's apartment overlooked the city, walls covered with architectural drawings, his first new designs since the accident. "You're creating again," she observed from the doorway, maintaining distance. "Something woke up during our sessions." He gestured to the drafting table. "A community center for trauma survivors. Pro bono work." Mira stepped closer, studying the beautiful, thoughtful design. "It's incredible. I have something else to show you." He led her to his living room where an easel stood. "Dr. Mather suggested I continue art therapy independently." The canvas showed two figures standing amidst partially rebuilt structures, faces turned toward each other rather than the destruction around them. "It's us," she whispered. "No," he corrected gently. "It's hope. Something I'd forgotten existed." "Vikram, we can't—" "I've requested formal discharge from PRISM," he interrupted. "My official therapy ends next week. After that, I'm just a man who met a woman under complicated circumstances." Mira felt torn between professional ethics and personal truth. "Even then, there's a recommended waiting period." "I know. 6 months minimum." He took her hand, the contact sending warmth through her fingers. "I'll wait. The question is, will you still be waiting too?" The moment stretched between them, filled with possibilities both healing and frightening. Finally, Mira squeezed his hand. "I can't make promises," she said honestly, "but I can say I've never met anyone who understands my broken pieces the way you do." His smile was the first truly unburdened one she'd seen. Sometimes the most beautiful mosaics come from shattered glass. As she left his apartment, Mira felt something shifting inside her, the cracks in her heart not disappearing, but perhaps beginning to mend into something stronger than before. Shattered glass. Mira Sharma adjusted the colorful array of paints on the therapy table, her slender fingers arranging each bottle with practiced precision. 6 months at Prism Rehabilitation Center hadn't dulled her nervousness before meeting new patients. Her supervisor's words echoed in her mind. "This one's different. He's resistant to traditional therapy." The manila folder on her desk contained the basics. Vikram Kapoor, 34, acclaimed architect, survivor of a building collapse that killed his business partner. Diagnosed with PTSD and creative block. 3 therapists had already failed to break through his walls. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. He stood taller than his photo suggested, shoulders slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. His eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, surveyed the room with the calculated precision of someone who designed spaces for a living. "Mr. Kapoor, I'm Mira Sharma. Please, come in." "I told them I don't need another therapist," he said, voice low but clear. "Especially not art therapy." Mira smiled, accustomed to resistance. "Consider it an experiment. If you hate it after today, I'll recommend something else." He hesitated before taking a seat across from her. The sunlight through the window illuminated half his face, casting the other in shadow, a perfect metaphor for the man described in his file. "I designed buildings that stood against earthquakes," he said, eyeing the blank paper before him. "Now they want me to draw with crayons." "Actually," Mira pushed a set of charcoal sticks toward him, "I thought we'd start with these. Architects appreciate precision, right?" A flicker of interest crossed his face. "You researched me. Just enough to know you speak through structure and form. I won't ask you to tell me how you feel. I'd rather you show me." For 15 minutes, they worked in silence. Mira sketched absently, occasionally glancing at Vikram. His hand moved with surprising fluidity across the paper, creating harsh, angular lines that gradually formed what appeared to be a fractured skyline. When he finally set down the charcoal, his fingertips were blackened. He stared at the drawing, seemingly surprised by his own creation. "May I?" Mira asked, reaching for his paper. The building he'd drawn was beautiful, but broken, with jagged edges where walls had collapsed. In the foreground stood a lone figure, back turned to the viewer. "Is this how you see yourself?" she asked quietly. "Standing in the aftermath?" His jaw tightened. "It's just a building." "Nothing is ever just a building to an architect," she countered, then turned her own drawing toward him. A woman standing before a shattered mirror, countless reflections staring back. His eyes met hers, recognition flickering between them. "You understand," he said, not a question but a realization. "We all have our fractured places, Mr. Kapoor." "Vikram," he corrected softly. As the session ended, he paused at the door. "Same time Thursday?" Mira nodded, ignoring the unprofessional flutter in her chest. "I'll be here." After he left, she studied his drawing again. Beyond the obvious trauma, she saw something else, remarkable skill and buried emotion. This man hadn't lost his talent. It was simply buried beneath the rubble of his past. What worried her wasn't his brokenness, but how quickly she recognized herself in his fractured lines. Professional boundaries existed for a reason, yet something told her their parallel cracks might somehow help heal them both. Fragile reflections. 3 weeks of sessions had passed, and Mira found herself watching the clock before Vikram's appointments. Their therapy had evolved into conversations that flowed between art and architecture, trauma and healing, always circling closer to the truth without quite touching it. Today, she'd prepared something different. When Vikram arrived, instead of separate papers, a single large canvas lay on the table. "Collaborative work?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Sometimes we see ourselves more clearly through interaction," Mira explained, rolling up the sleeves of her blue blouse. "We'll create something together, no planning, just response." Vikram hesitated. "I don't play well with others. That's why Aditya handled the client side while I—" He stopped abruptly, the name of his deceased partner hanging in the air between them. "First time you've said his name," Mira noted gently. Vikram's fingers tensed around the paintbrush she'd offered. "Does everything have to be a breakthrough with you therapists?" "Not everything," she said, dipping her own brush into deep blue paint. "Sometimes it's just conversation." She made the first stroke across the canvas, a sweeping arc that suggested the horizon. After a moment's hesitation, Vikram responded with a series of vertical lines, reminiscent of a skyline but softer than his usual work. As they painted, their movements fell into a rhythm. When their hands accidentally brushed, Mira felt a current that had nothing to do with therapy. She pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on the emerging image. "You keep painting barriers," she observed as he added another wall-like structure. "And you keep finding ways around them," he countered, nodding to where her blues and purples flowed through his structures. The painting evolved into something neither had planned. A city at dawn, buildings both broken and beautiful, with light filtering through the cracks. Their styles had merged seamlessly, his precision complementing her emotional fluidity. "It's like looking at my mind from the outside," Vikram murmured, stepping back. Mira studied his face, noticing how his eyes had softened. "The light coming through the broken places, that's new." "Maybe I had the right teacher." His gaze held hers a moment too long. Mira turned away, suddenly aware of how close they stood. "Vikram, I should clarify something. These sessions are about your healing, not connections outside therapy. I understand professional boundaries, Mira." His voice carried a hint of something. Disappointment? Relief? She couldn't tell. As he gathered his things to leave, he paused. "My firm has been calling. They want me back. How does that make you feel?" "Like I'm standing on the edge of that collapsed building again," he admitted. "I don't know if I can create anything worthwhile anymore." Mira gestured to the canvas. "Evidence suggests otherwise. This is different. This is—" He searched for the word. "Safe." After he left, Mira stared at their painting, trying to understand the uncomfortable truth forming in her chest. Their collaborative art revealed something her professional ethics wanted to deny: a connection that transcended the therapeutic relationship. In her notebook, she wrote, "Patient showing significant progress in creative expression and emotional articulation. Recommend continued art therapy with careful boundary maintenance." She underlined boundary maintenance twice, knowing it was as much a reminder to herself as a clinical observation. The fragile reflections they'd created together weren't just Vikram's emotions on canvas. They were hers too, and that realization terrified her.